Hello dear, Namaste. Welcome back to session 2 of our free OTM training session. I am Dev and I am absolutely delighted to see you here for the second session. If you watched session 1, you have already taken the first crucial step in your OTM learning journey. And if you are joining us for the first time today, I welcome you. Though I strongly recommend watching session 1 first, as each session builds on the previous one. Before we begin today's session, let me address a few important points. First, thank you for your comments on session 1. I received wonderful feedbacks, thoughtful questions, and genuine acknowledgements from many of you. Your engagement tells me we have a community of serious learners here, and that is exactly what we need to build something meaningful together. But many participants who have not commented yet, it's not too late. Your feedback helps me understand who is actively participating. Second point, session 1 has now been removed from YouTube as announced. This keeps everyone on the same timeline and ensures focused, committed learning. Session 2 will similarly be available only until Saturday 8 a.m. IST, when we might do a live session if I get questions and doubts. Please plan accordingly. And third, a reminder about WhatsApp updates. If you have not already, please save the number provided in the description to receive training updates. Many of you have done this already, but some messages are still not reaching everyone due to unsaved contacts. In session 1, we have covered fundamentals. What OTM stands for, what is a TMS, and how transportation fits into bigger picture of logistics and supply chain. Today, we are going to take a fascinating journey through time. Session 2 is all about evolution of logistics and supply chain management. We are going to explore first how logistics has existed since ancient civilization, from building the pyramids to feeding the armies. Second, how wars throughout history were won and lost based on logistics capabilities, with real examples from the American War of Independence and World War II. Third, why businesses took so long to recognize what military leaders knew all along, that logistics is critical. Fourth, the birth of supply chain management as a formal discipline in 1980s. Fifth, how globalization, customer expectations, competition, and technology converge to make the supply chain management essential. And last but not the least, how all of this led to the emergence of sophisticated systems like OTM. Understanding this evolution is crucial because it shows us that OTM didn't just evolve out of nowhere. It is the culmination of decades, actually centuries, of learning, innovation, and problem solving. When you understand the problems that companies faced, you will appreciate why OTM is built the way it is. And this is going to be an exciting session because we are not just learning dry history, we are understanding how human civilizations has always struggled with the same fundamental challenge, getting the right stuff to the right place at the right time at the right cost, and how we have gotten progressively better at solving this challenge. Now, before I switch to the digital pad for the main content, one important note. This training requires your active participation. Please take detailed notes, pause and replay sections if needed. Think about how these concepts apply to real world situations, and don't just passively watch, engage with the material. And most importantly, leave a comment when you finish. Your comment could be questions about anything unclear, observations about how you see these concepts, in your work or your daily life, or it may be a suggestions for how I can improve, or simply an acknowledgement that you completed the session. Your engagement is what keeps the community strong and helps me understand who is serious about learning OTM. All right, let's dive into the fascinating history and evolution of supply chain management. I will now switch to the screen sharing mode where you will see me explaining on the digital writing pad. Let's begin. Now that we understand what supply chain and logistic is, let's take a fascinating journey through history. And here is something that might surprise you. So, logistics is not a new concept at all. In fact, these principles have existed for thousands of years, from building the Great Pyramids of Egypt to providing relief during famines. The fundamental principle of moving materials and meeting requirements have remained largely the same. Now let's see first ancient logistics, and let's take an example of the pyramids. Think about the pyramid and try to get answers. How did the ancient Egyptians first done the procurement of massive stones blocks? Okay, and second, transport them across vast distances without modern vehicles. Then how they have stored materials at the construction site, how they have coordinated thousands of workers, and how they ensure food and water supplies for the workforce. All these things was logistics. Ancient logistics, but logistics nonetheless. Now let's see the second example in history, war and logistics. Now it becomes really interesting. Throughout human history, wars have been won and lost through logistics, not just through brave soldiers or brilliant strategies, but through the ability or inability to supply armies with food, weapons, and equipment. Let me share two powerful examples that show how logistics literally changed the course of history. First, let's take American War of Independence. Okay, the British defeat in the American War of Independence, which lasted from 1775 to 1783, almost for 8 years. You know how the British was one of the most powerful in the world, right? So how did they lose to American colonies? And one main reason was the logistics failure. So what happened? The British army in America was fighting thousands of miles away from Britain. So you see the world map. This is North America, this is South America, and this is Europe. And here you have the Britain. So in between you have Atlantic Ocean, and the America is thousands of nautical mile away from the Britain. So at the height of the war, there were 12,000 British troops in America, and they depended almost entirely on Britain for supplies. Okay, So everything had to come across the Atlantic Ocean, whether it is food or weapons, ammunition, uniform, equipment, or medical supplies. Everything has to come from across the Atlantic Ocean. Now imagine managing this in the 18th century. There were no telephones, no computer, no airplanes. Ships took months to cross the ocean, and for the first 6 years of the war, the British had no proper system to manage this supply. And what was the result? Soldiers don't receive supplies on time. They went hungry, they lacked ammunition during battles, their morale collapsed, and military operations were affected. It wasn't until 1781, near the end of war, the Britain finally developed a proper supply organizations. But by then, it was too late. They had already lost. The mighty British Empire was defeated partly because of logistics failure. Now, fast forward to World War II. Here we see logistics was done right. Logistics success. In the North African desert, the Allied forces defeated the famous German general Rommel. Okay, so Allied forces defeated the German general Rommel. The Allied invasion of Europe, the D-Day, was one of the most complex military operations in history. Both of these victories were not just about military strength, they were masterpiece of logistics planning and logistics success. In fact, Field Marshal Rommel, he himself once said, let me write that, before the fighting proper, the battle is won or lost by the quartermasters. So this quartermaster, that's the military term for logistics officers. Even this brilliant military commander understood that having the best soldiers meaning nothing if you can't supply them with fuel, food, ammunition at the right place and right time. So here is the fascinating paradox. The general and military leaders have understood the critical importance of logistics for thousands of years. Thousands of years they understood. But strangely, the business organizations only started recognizing this in the recent past. Why did it take so long for businesses to understand what military leaders knew all along? So let's see early business recognition. The first warning came as early as 1915. A person named Ark Shaw, he wrote something remarkable. Let me read you a part of it. The physical distribution of goods is a problem distinct from creating demand for those goods. Many failures in distributions have been due to lack of coordination between creating demand and physical supply. So, in easy words, what was he saying? Hey, businesses, it's not enough to just sell the product. You need to have a proper system to deliver them to. And these two things, selling and delivering, must work together. Okay. So earlier the focus was only on sell. Now it is equally important to deliver the product and where the logistics management comes into picture. This was in 1915, almost 110 years ago. But did businesses listen? Not really. Why didn't businesses pay attention to the logistics management? So there are several reasons. So let me list them down. First is focus on production. After the Industrial Revolution, companies were obsessed with making product efficiently. They thought if we can produce it cheaply, we will succeed. They forgot about getting it to the customer efficiently. Okay. Then second, their focus was on sales. Companies focused on sales and marketing, and the quote was, if we can sell it, we will make money. Again, delivery was an afterthought. Then third, fragmented thinking. Different departments worked in silos. Okay. For example, the purchasing department did their thing. Okay. Second, production, they did their thing on manufacturing area. Warehousing department only focused about warehousing. Then transportation department, they were only involved in the movement of goods, and nobody looked the complete flow. No one to look the complete flow. Okay. So focus on production, focus on sales, fragmented thinking, and then fourth point, limited tools. Without computers and modern technology, it was very hard to manage complex logistics anyway. So these were the reason why the businesses have not paid much attention to the logistics management. Now, when was the turning point? Okay, so the turning point after World War II ended, something interesting happened. The military has become incredibly good at logistics, and they had to be moving millions of soldiers, tanks, food supplies, medical equipment across continents required unprecedented logistics sophistication. What happened next? The military logistics concept started entering civilian business. Okay, so the word logistics become popular in the business field. Companies started thinking about distribution efficiency. Trucks and highway systems expanded massively, and containerization started. So standard containers started being used in the shipping. But still, each department operated separately. Nobody was looking at the complete picture from supplier to customer. So in the post-World War era of 1950s and 1960s, they production and sales was the focus, but they also started focusing on the logistics. They also gradually started getting the tools. Okay, and that they learned the logistics from military, but still this one was the problem. No one to look the complete picture. Here comes the birth of supply chain management. In 1980s, the birth of supply chain management. So this was the real revolution. Okay, this is when everything changed, and the term supply chain was coined in early 1980s. What drove this transformation? Okay, so the driving forces for the birth of supply chain management. So first is globalization. So companies started sourcing from one country, manufacturing in another country, and selling worldwide. You could not manage this complexity in silos anymore. So in globalization first, procurement of raw material globally, and second, selling the finished material globally. This is North America, this is South America, Europe, Africa, okay, this is Asia. So some company in North America, they are procuring raw material from Asia. Raw material is flowing like this, and then they are doing the production and then selling the finished material to the Asia or selling the finished material to the Europe or throughout the world. So it's like that. So that was the globalization, and in globalization, all the trade happening globally. So global trade volume increased many folds, and it was very difficult to manage that complex supply chain in silos. So it gave the birth to the thought of supply chain. Then second, the Japanese competitions. The Japanese companies like Toyota, they introduced JIT manufacturing, okay? Just in time manufacturing. So what was the concept in JIT? Keep minimal inventory, then bring materials exactly what you need. And this required perfect coordination across entire supply chain. So it requires perfect coordination. American and European companies realized we need to coordinate everything from supplier to customer or we will lose the game. Okay. So first driving force for the supply chain management was globalization, then Japanese competitions, and the third one, customer power. Customers started demanding for more variety, better quality, faster delivery, and lower prices. The only way to deliver all these things was to optimize the supply chain, not just individual pieces. And that's why supply chain management comes into the picture. Then fourth factor, cost pressures. Companies discovered that huge amounts of money were locked in first excess inventory sitting in the warehouses, inefficient transportation, and poor coordination causing delay and waste. Optimizing this could save millions of dollars. So these were the four most important factors driving the supply chain management revolution. So globalization, Japanese competitions, customer power, and cost pressure. Due to these four factors, what was the realizations? That instead of each department optimizing only itself, what if we optimize the entire chain from raw material to customer? What if the supplier knew production schedule in advance? This will be sent to the supplier so that they would be ready for the supply. The production knew customer demand in real time. Customer demand in real time. Who will know this? Producer. Transportation was planned based on actual need. So real time transportation planning based on actual need, and everyone shared information and worked together. Sharing information and working together. This was the supply chain management. And suddenly, what military leaders had known for centuries, business leaders finally understood. Now comes to the era of 2000s to present, means 2026. So early 2000s, the ERP system, for example, SAP or Oracle ERP, become common. Basic supply chain software emerged. Email and internet enabled instant communication, and electronic tracking of shipment. All these things improved. Then by 2010, we started thinking of cloud computing. Systems like OTM cloud and all started coming up after 2010. Then real-time GPS tracking, real-time GPS tracking, mobile apps, then e-commerce explosion like Amazon, Flipkart, and so on. They changed everything, and very high customer expectation. So the customer expectation became, I want to know where my order right now, and I want to return the product, and so on. So that was 2000s. Then after 2020, what we have seen is the era of artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain, sustainability focus, and resilience. So AI for predicting demand and optimizing routes, Internet of Things, sensors on every truck and container is installed and tracked. The blockchain for complete transparency, sustainability focus to reduce the carbon footprint in the transportation, and resilience, which came after COVID-19, showed how fragile supply chain could be. So the supply chain resilience word coined up more after the COVID pandemic, and we started thinking about this. So these are the five most important trends in the supply chain of contemporary world: AI, IoT, blockchain, sustainability focus, and resilience. After understanding this, let's understand why supply chain management became absolutely critical. So the first reason is it's expensive. For most of the companies, supply chain costs are 10 to 20% of total revenue. For retailers, even more. Improving this by even 2 to 3% can mean millions of dollars in saving. Then second point, it's competitive. In today's world, products are similar. Customers can buy from many companies. What makes you win is faster delivery, more reliable delivery, better tracking, and superior customer service. And all of these are supply chain capabilities. Amazon didn't win because they had a website. They won because of their superior supply chain. So the supply chain is expensive, it is competitive market, and the third one, it's global. Today's supply chain is spanned throughout the world. Your smartphone has components from 10 plus countries. Managing this complexity without technology is impossible. And fourth, customer facing. When delivery is late, customers don't care about your internal problems. They just know you failed, right? Supply chain directly impacts customer satisfaction. And fifth and last, it's technology enablement. Modern supply chains can't be managed without technology. Systems like OTMs are not luxury anymore, they are a necessity for survival. So that's what we learned, the history of logistics and supply chain. So from the ancient civilization building pyramid to generals winning war through logistics superiority. So that's the complete discussion about the history of logistics and supply chain. So from ancient civilization building pyramid to generals winning wars through better logistics management, to the business expert ranting in 1915 to companies finally getting it in the 1980s, to today's AI powered supply chain. The fundamental principle remains the same. Successfully managing the flow of materials and information is critical to achieve your objectives, whether it's winning a war, building a monument, or delighting your customers. And that's exactly what we are going to learn in this training series, how to manage this flow using one of the most powerful tools available today, which is Oracle Transportation Management or OTM. Okay, back to camera. I hope you have enjoyed this deep dive into the evolution of supply chain management. We covered so much ground today, from ancient logistics to modern AI powered supply chain. Let me quickly recap the journey we took. First, we saw how logistics has existed for thousands of years, from building pyramids to moving armies. Second, we learned about historical examples where logistics failures changed the course of history, like the British defeat in the American War of Independence. Third, we understood why Field Marshal Rommel said battles are won or lost by the quartermasters, not just by the soldiers. And quartermaster is nothing but the logistics consultant. We are the quartermasters. And fourth, We explored why businesses were slow to recognize logistics' importance, even though military leaders understood it for centuries. Fifth, we traced the evolution through distinct eras: fragmented functions in the 1950s and 60s, total cost approach in 1970s and 80s, integrated logistics in 1990s, and extended supply chain networks in late 2000s and beyond. Sixth, we understood the five major forces that made supply chain management critical. First, globalization. Second, rising customer expectation. Third, intense competition. Fourth, cost pressures. And fifth, technology enablement. And finally, we learned the five core processes of supply chain management. The key insights from the today's session is supply chain management is not just a business buzzword. It is the formalizations of principles that have determined success and failure throughout human history. And systems like OTM, they are the modern tool that enable companies to execute these age-old principles at unprecedented scale, speed, and sophistication. In the session 3, we are going to deep dive into logistics itself. We will explore what exactly logistics means in practical terms, the six key components in the logistics, that means transportation, warehousing, inventory management, order management, material handling, and packaging. The four types of logistics: inbound, outbound, reverse logistics, and internal logistics. How companies like Amazon, Zara, Walmart use superior logistics as a competitive weapon. And most importantly, where transportation fits within logistics and why it is so critical. First, we have zoomed out. We started with the OTM, then we understood TMS, then we understood logistics, and then we understood supply chain. So, everything in a basic perspective. Now, we are zooming in progressively. In the session 2, we have gone through the historical context of logistics and supply chain management. In the next session, we will understand supply chain management deeply, and then after transportation and TMS, and next OTM. So we are building the knowledge layer by layer, ensuring you have a rock solid foundation before we deep dive into the tool itself. Now my request to you, first complete your notes. Go back through the session if needed. Make sure you have captured the key concepts. This is not a race, it is about deep understanding. Second, second, complete this session. As you know, this session will only be available for next 48 hours. So you complete it and make your notes. Third, leave the comment. This is really important. Your comments help me know who is participating, understand what's working and what needs improvement, build a community of serious, dedicated learners, and identify participants for future initiatives and opportunities. And your comment can be anything: a question, observation, connections, acknowledgement, anything. Just engage, let me know you are here and you are learning. And fourth, if you think this training is valuable, please share it. Please share the training form with others, your colleagues interested in supply chain or logistics, the students exploring career options, and anyone who wants to learn OTM. The more serious learners we have, the stronger our community becomes. I want to thank you for investing time in learning OTM. I know you are busy. I know you have many demands on your time, but you are choosing to invest in yourself, in building skills that will serve you throughout your career. That is commendable. That is what separates those who wish to success from those who work for it, and you are working for it. Learning OTM is a journey, not a destination. Each session brings you one step closer to the mastery. Stay committed, stay curious, and stay engaged. The supply chain world needs skilled professionals. Companies are actively looking for people who understand these concepts deeply and can apply them parallelly. You are building exactly those skills right here, right now. So, here is what you should do next. Review your notes, leave the comment, save the WhatsApp number, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so that you can get notification. Mark your calendar. Session 3 would be on Saturday based on the comments and questions, and share it with everyone. Thank you once again for being part of this journey. See you in the next session where we will explore further in more detail. Until then, keep learning, stay curious, and remember, every expert was once a beginner. Your OTM mastery journey is well underway. Take care and see you again. Namaskar.